You walk around this building, and everyone is so supportive and so excited about what is happening with the Fever.
The biggest star in basketball is staring down a crisis that could define her entire career. And it's not unfolding on the court beneath the blazing lights of a sold-out arena. It's a silent war being fought behind closed doors. A collision of trust and philosophy that has now forced the hand of the Indiana Fever's front office and triggered a shocking ultimatum that absolutely nobody in the sports world saw coming. For weeks, the world has watched Caitlin Clark navigate the brutal, unforgiving transition to the WNBA. The physicality, the relentless defensive pressure, the enormous weight of a franchise, and arguably the entire future of the league resting squarely on her shoulders. It was all part of the expected narrative. She was supposed to be the savior, the phenomenon who would elevate the game to breathtaking new heights. But the real story, the one that insiders and sources close to the team are quietly whispering about, is far more complicated and far more dangerous to her legacy. It's a story about trust, on-court chemistry, and a rookie teammate who has become the unwilling, silent centerpiece of a franchise-altering power struggle. The pressure inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse was suffocating. A palpable tension that you could feel radiating straight through the screen. Another crucial game was slipping through the Fever's fingers, and you could see the raw, unfiltered frustration carved all over Caitlin Clark's face. She was driving into walls of defenders, dishing to teammates who weren't ready for the pass, and desperately trying to manufacture opportunities out of absolutely thin air. But the floor felt like it was shrinking with every single possession. Defenses were collapsing on her with a suffocating, crushing intensity. Deploying schemes like the box and one, a strategy rarely witnessed at the professional level, but devastatingly effective against a team built around a single dominant threat. They were daring, practically begging, anyone else on the Fever to step up and make a play. It was a scene that had become painfully, agonizingly familiar for Fever fans and for Clark herself. The team desperately needed a spark, a pressure release valve to stretch the floor and give their superstar the precious inches of breathing room she thrives in. Yet sitting on the bench, watching this strategic suffocation play out in real time, was the one player who was specifically recruited for that exact purpose. And as the final buzzer sounded on another gut-wrenching loss, the questions began shifting away from the team's X's and O's toward a far more personal and explosive question. Why wasn't Caitlin Clark playing with Justine Pissot? The name Justine Pissot may not carry the same global recognition as Caitlin Clark's, but within the highly specialized world of basketball scouting, she is known for one elite, game-changing skill: her lethal three-point shot. Recruited as a high-profile transfer, Pissot was brought to the Indiana Fever for one very specific, non-negotiable reason. She is a floor spacer of the highest order, a designated sharpshooter whose entire purpose on the court is to set up camp behind the arc and make defenses pay a devastating price for directing too much attention towards superstars like Clark and Aaliyah Boston. In basketball theory, she is the perfect complementary puzzle piece. Her mere presence on the court should, by design, carve out wider and more inviting lanes for Clark to attack and make it strategically impossible for opponents to double-team her without surrendering an open high-percentage shot. She is, in essence, the key to unlocking the full, terrifying potential of Caitlin's offensive genius at the WNBA level. The front office saw it when they acquired her. The coaches saw it when they drew up their plays. And every analyst across the league saw it when they broke down the Fever's roster. So her continued puzzling absence during crucial offensive sets began to look less like a standard rookie not yet ready for the big moment and more like a vital tool being deliberately left sitting in the toolbox. This was no longer just a simple coaching decision or a routine matter of rookie development. It was a profound mystery that was beginning to fuel rampant speculation and point toward a deeper, far more unsettling issue festering within the team's core dynamics. And the truth behind why she was sitting on that bench, unused and unseen, was far more shocking and politically charged than anyone could have possibly imagined. What started as quiet, isolated murmurs in the locker room soon grew into a persistent, undeniable chorus of whispers that something was fundamentally broken within the team. The on-court chemistry, especially between the monumental rookie Clark and some of the newer or less established players, felt disjointed and awkward. It lacked the fluid, almost telepathic connection that championship-caliber teams are built upon. Sources close to the team, speaking strictly on the condition of anonymity, began suggesting that the glaring issue wasn't about a lack of talent, but a critical and widening lack of trust. The rumor mill churned with stories of practice sessions where ball movement seemed to predictably favor familiar veteran teammates, and of a subtle but unmistakably growing disconnect between the team's superstar and the role players specifically brought in to support her. The emerging narrative pointed directly at Clark, a generational player so accustomed to having the ball in her hands and controlling every single decision through 4 years at Iowa, now visibly struggling to integrate with pieces she wasn't fully confident in. Was she deliberately overlooking Pissot, a player with whom she hadn't yet built a deeply rooted on-court rapport? Or was it something more subconscious? A quarterback defaulting to their most trusted, most familiar receivers in a moment of intense crisis? Whatever the underlying reason, the on-court result remained exactly the same. The offense was becoming predictable, stagnant, and embarrassingly easy to defend. The glaring lack of synergy was transforming into a significant and growing liability. And in the cutthroat, results-driven world of professional sports, liabilities are handled swiftly and decisively by the people sitting at the very top. The situation was rapidly escalating far beyond a simple rookie adjustment period. It was becoming a full-blown problem, a foundational crack splitting open at the very core of the franchise's future. And a very powerful, legendary figure was about to step in and solve it entirely on her own terms. That legendary figure is Lin Dunn, the general manager and senior advisor for the Indiana Fever. To truly understand the gravity and full weight of what happened next, you have to understand exactly who Lin Dunn is. She isn't just another front office executive sitting comfortably behind a desk in a tailored suit. She's a basketball legend, an absolute titan of the sport. A Hall of Fame coach with a championship ring earned right here with this very franchise back in 2012, and a reputation forged across decades of tough, decisive, and completely no-nonsense leadership. Dunn is a product of an old school of thought where the team, the logo stitched on the front of the jersey, comes first, second, and third. Individual accolades, personal preferences, and even superstar status mean very little to her if the team isn't winning. She has seen it all, from managing the most demanding superstar egos in the game to assembling championship rosters from the ground up using overlooked and deeply undervalued players. Her philosophy is brutally, beautifully simple. You either contribute to the solution or you are a living, breathing part of the problem. And she has absolutely zero patience for locker room drama or on-court chemistry issues that stem from anything other than maximum collective effort. As she watched her team struggle night after night, as she observed the stagnant offense grinding to a halt, and as she heard the whispers growing louder from deep inside her own organization, she recognized the dangerous, unmistakable signs of a fracture. It was a deep, deeply unsettling crack forming in the very foundation she was meticulously and painstakingly trying to build around Clark. And Lin Dunn was not about to stand by and watch her billion-dollar franchise crumble before it even had a genuine chance to be built. She decided it was time for a direct intervention, and it was going to be swift, brutally direct, and completely unforgettable. The meeting was said to have taken place behind a closed, unmarked door somewhere deep in the bowels of the arena, far from the prying eyes and sensitive ears of the media. It was just Lin Dunn and Caitlin Clark. No coaches, no agents, no public relations handlers, no buffers of any kind. The atmosphere was reportedly icy and thick with a suffocating tension. Dunn, armed with her decades of hard-won experience and an unblinking, unwavering resolve, did not waste a single precious second on pleasantries. She laid out the situation in stark, unambiguous, and unflinching terms. She spoke about the team's immense untapped potential, the city's unprecedented and electric excitement, and the massive financial and strategic investment the franchise had made in constructing a genuine winner around its new cornerstone. Then, with surgical and devastating precision, she got straight to the heart of the matter. According to sources who were later briefed on the intense, behind-closed-doors exchange, Dunn delivered the ultimatum. It wasn't a crude threat of being traded or benched. That would have been counterproductive and frankly insane. It was something far more psychologically potent and profoundly impactful. She allegedly told Clark directly that the era of her having to do absolutely everything herself, the one-woman show she had mastered and perfected during her iconic college days, was officially and permanently over. She had dangerous weapons sitting right there on the bench, specifically sharpshooters like Pissot, who were brought in for the sole and explicit purpose of making her job easier and the team exponentially more dangerous. The directive was crystal clear and left no room for interpretation. You will make it work. You will use every single asset this team puts around you, or we will be forced to completely reevaluate the assets we have surrounding you. The unspoken message buried beneath those words was chilling and absolute. If Clark couldn't, or worse, simply wouldn't integrate with the pieces carefully provided by the front office, then the front office would have no other choice but to go out and find entirely different pieces. It was a direct and powerful challenge to her leadership and her capacity to elevate the entire team around her, not simply her own incredible individual stat line. The choice was now hers and hers alone. Evolve into the complete, selfless leader the franchise desperately needed her to become, or remain a breathtaking solo act trapped on a perpetually losing team. The ball was now, quite literally and unmistakably figuratively, in Clark's court. In the days immediately following the reported closed-door meeting, the change was subtle but undeniably and visibly present. Observers at team practices noticed a palpable and unmistakable shift in the team's overall energy and collective focus. The ball, which had so often appeared stuck in one or two players' hands, seemed to move far more freely, touching more hands during offensive drills with a renewed and infectious sense of shared purpose. Clark, while still every bit her intensely competitive and fiercely driven self, appeared noticeably more focused on deliberate integration and genuine team building. There were credible and consistent reports of her staying late after practice sessions, running additional extra drills specifically with Pissot and other bench players, working tirelessly on timing, spacing, and developing that crucial, invaluable unspoken on-court trust. During her media sessions, the typically candid, open, and sometimes fiery Clark appeared notably more guarded and carefully measured in her words. When asked about team chemistry or her connection with newer teammates, her answers became noticeably more diplomatic, filled with carefully chosen, team-first platitudes. She spoke about building trust every single day and getting absolutely everyone on the same page. For a player who has famously and proudly worn her heart on her sleeve her entire career, this new, more corporate and carefully polished language was a massive red flag for many veteran reporters covering the team. It was the unmistakable language of someone who had been handed a clear, serious, and career-defining directive straight from the highest level of organizational power. Then came the next game, the first real public test. Fans, analysts, and in all likelihood the entire WNBA front office watched with eagle eyes locked in. Would Pissot see meaningful minutes in the first half? And if she did, would Clark actively and deliberately look for her? The very first moment Pissot checked into the game, a collective breath was held by everyone inside that arena. The answer to those questions would reveal everything about whether the ultimatum had been truly received, and more importantly, what it meant for the long-term future of the Indiana Fever. The tension was no longer simply about winning a basketball game. It was about witnessing in real time the direct and immediate fallout of a high-stakes front office power play. This move by Lin Dunn was about so much more than simply getting Justine Pissot a few extra minutes of playing time. It was a calculated, strategic, and masterfully executed power play designed to send an unmistakable and ringing message, not only to Caitlin Clark, but to the entire organization, the broader league, and the sports world at large. In the modern era of player empowerment, where superstars routinely wield immense and almost completely unchecked influence over roster decisions, coaching hires, and overall team strategy, Dunn's swift and decisive action was a firm and resounding pushback. She was drawing a hard and definitive line in the sand, unequivocally declaring that in Indiana, the franchise's authority and long-term vision would not be challenged, undermined, or compromised, not even by the biggest and most celebrated star the sport has ever produced. This was a classic, time-tested move to firmly establish control and deliberately set the culture early in a young superstar's professional career. By confronting this deeply sensitive issue head-on and entirely behind closed doors, Dunn was shaping the narrative around her young star completely on her own terms. She was forcing Clark to grow beyond simply being a phenomenal scorer into something far greater, a true floor general. A complete leader who fully understands that her ultimate job is to elevate every single person around her, not just herself. It was an incredibly high-risk, high-reward maneuver with enormous consequences on both sides. If it worked, it could accelerate the team's collective development by years and forge a tougher, more unified, and genuinely resilient championship contender. If it backfired, it could create a toxic and irreparable rift between the franchise's star player and its front office. A disastrous and poisonous dynamic that has derailed countless promising teams throughout the long and complicated history of professional sports. Dunn was betting everything that Clark, the ultimate and relentless competitor, would respond to this challenge with the maturity and burning determination that define truly great players. She was betting that a fire had been lit deep beneath her, a fire that would either forge an all-time legend or ruthlessly expose a fatal and irreversible flaw. The entire WNBA was now watching and waiting breathlessly to see which outcome it would be. The dust from this internal explosion is far from settled, and the aftershocks are still being felt throughout the organization. Lin Dunn's ultimatum has fundamentally and permanently altered the trajectory of the Indiana Fever season, and perhaps the entire Caitlin Clark era itself. A clear and unassailable message has been sent from the very top down. Winning comes before absolutely everything, and no single player, no matter how wildly popular or historically talented, is exempt from that ruthless and singular pursuit. The immediate future now hinges entirely on Clark's response. Will she fully embrace this immense challenge and evolve into the kind of transcendent leader who can carry a team all the way to a championship by genuinely trusting and actively empowering every single player on her roster? Or will the crushing pressure applied by her own front office create a fracture so deep it simply cannot be repaired, leading to a future defined by discontent, dysfunction, and devastating what-ifs? This is the true and ultimate test of her greatness. It is no longer just about her incredible, once-in-a-generation talent with a basketball in her hands. It is about her ability to navigate the complex, brutal, and high-stakes politics of professional sports and the enormous, suffocating burdens of true leadership. The choice she makes next, the player she ultimately decides to become in the direct wake of this defining crisis, won't just determine the fate of one game or one season. It will define her entire legacy and finally answer the ultimate question that continues to hang heavily over her young and still unfolding career. Is Caitlin Clark a superstar, or is she a champion? The whole world is watching and waiting for the answer. The whole world is waiting to find out whether this moment breaks her or builds her into something the sport has never seen before. The what-ifs loom large, the pressure is unlike anything she has ever faced, and the clock is ticking on the most important chapter of her life. This is her true ultimate test of greatness. Not just talent, not just fame, but the iron-willed ability to lead when everything is on the line and the entire world is watching every single move she makes.